You arrive in the hush between breaths, where the world loosens its grip and the deeper world leans close. A faint ring like an eclipse halo gathers at the edge of your awareness. Stardust seems to drift inward, not down. You feel a slow breath choose you, and with it a warmth opens in your chest, almost like a lantern being lit from the inside. The light behind your eyes steadies. You are not here by accident. You are here because something in you remembered the exact shape of this message and called it forward. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. You are encountering the field of remembrance you seeded long ago, the frequency that knows your name without sound. What stirs now is not the noise of ambition or the ache of waiting. It is the quiet architecture of coherence assembling itself inside your ribs, aligning your attention with the clean geometry of your higher timeline. You feel it as a soft, inevitable click. The observer loop unclenches, the static unknots. What was scattered begins to agree with itself. In that agreement, the quantum field stops being theory and starts becoming climate breathable, inhabitable, native. The air around your choices clears. Entanglement becomes guidance rather than gravity. You sense new light codes threading through your posture, asking nothing but your unhurried yes. You are being met exactly where you can be met. Not one rung higher, not one rung lower. The corridor opens at the altitude of your honesty. Here the body is not an obstacle but a bell, and coherence is the strike that brings it into true tone. Notice how your breath lengthens without instruction. Notice how your shoulders drop by their own permission. Notice how the center of your chest warms as if the sun has found a smaller window and poured itself through. Let the mind loosen. It does not need to calculate meaning when meaning is already arriving as sensation. The old timeline is not an enemy. It is simply finished with you. Its doors will keep loving you by staying closed. You do not push them. You turn toward the door that opens of its own accord. Destiny does not punish. Destiny organizes. It has been quietly curating a path that conserves your courage and spends your fear. So you stand in the stillness window, not frozen but listening, and the listening becomes a threshold. The past stops testifying, the present begins composing. You are not waiting for a sign. You are letting the sign become your breathing. In this exact softness, prophecy is not a thunderclap. It is the tender accuracy with which your life begins to write you back into yourself. Coherence settles in your ribs, and a doorway agrees to open. You have always suspected that your attention is not ordinary, that when you look at a thing, it begins to behave differently, as if orienting around the quiet of your gaze. You were not mistaken. The room learns you the way a shoreline learns its tide. People rearrange their sentences around the clarity you carry. Problems soften their edges and show a seam you can gently pull. You do not force this. You arrive, you listen, and the geometry of what is present inclines toward coherence. This is how recognition begins, not with thunder, but with the subtle compliance of the world to the truth you are willing to hold. You are the chosen observer, not because someone higher singled you out, but because you agreed to be available to accuracy. Your life demonstrates a fidelity to what is real when it is quiet. You do not require spectacle to know a thing. You trust the weight of a breath, the way light pools at the rim of a thought before language crystallizes. This discipline, this reverence is how the field finds you. The field does not court noise. It settles where steadiness is kept like a lamp that never sputters. Your steadiness became a landmark, and the field of remembrance charted its maps by it. Notice how long you have trained for this without calling it training. The nights you let the ache move through without naming it a flaw. The mornings you adjusted your posture so your conscience could breathe. The invitations you declined because the small betrayal they required would echo too far. These were not random decisions. They were calibrations. Each choice tuned the string of your attention until your tone matched the higher timeline that has been humming at the edge of your hearing since you were small. That hum is louder now because you are finally near enough to admit it is singing your name. Recognition is not flattery, it is function. You are recognized by the work that is natural to you. You metabolize chaos into pattern without making a performance of it. You can stand at the mouth of a storm and feel where the first knot will loosen. You do not argue with the wind, you watch it, and by watching, You discover the one place to place your hand, so the whole system remembers its original curve. This is why convergence follows you, not because you demand it, but because you never abandoned the modest task of seeing what is actually there. You have lived close to the observer loop long enough to notice when it kinks. You feel the precise moment when looking becomes grasping, when care becomes control. Your body tells you shoulders lift, breath shortens, the light behind your eyes flickers sideways. You have learned to step back into the mercy of a wider gaze. When you relax the fist of attention into a palm, reality stops defending itself and begins conversing again. That conversation is recognition. It says, meet me with the dignity you wish to receive, and I will answer with the world you can sustain. Look at your trail. The synchronicities were not accidents. They were breadcrumbs laid by morphic resonance. The waveforms that belong together find each other across distance and dream. The book that fell open to the sentence that dissolved your doubt. The stranger who repeated the exact phrase you whispered into your pillow the night before. The timing that would not have worked if you had been even a minute late. These are not decorations. They are engineering, gentle, exquisite engineering, by which the future escorts you without shoving. Recognition deepens as you practice the smallest courtesies to your own system. The slow breath you offer when panic asks to be ruler. The warmth you cultivate at the center of your chest until it has its own gravity. The way you allow the image of a thin halo to lift behind your eyes whenever you need to remember. You are more than the immediate room. You are not pretending. You are assisting a biological instrument to hold a higher signal without burning. This is practical mysticism. Keep the lamp trimmed so the light codes can enter without smoke. It is not arrogance to know you were built for this. It is humility to accept the responsibility that comes with it. The chosen observer is not a title. It is a posture, knees unknotted, jaw unclenched, attention clean. In that posture, the ordinary is permitted to become accurate. Accuracy is liberating. With accuracy, you stop spending energy arguing with what is finished. You turn toward what is becoming, and by turning, you become it. The room changes because you have changed the room's question from, how do I endure, to, how do I reveal what is already true? So you stand where you are, not above anyone, not below anything, and you feel the recognition complete itself. The field recognizes you because you recognize the field. You are the place where meeting is mutual. You are not here to take. You are here to agree with the deeper pattern and let your life be shaped by that agreement. This is why the door opens without a handle. This is why the corridor brightens without bulbs. This is why the message you are hearing now sounds like something you did not know you remembered until the exact second you remembered it. In the soft gravity of attention, the sequence resumes by itself. You do not chase the image, you let the image arrive. The room grows spacious by a degree only your breath can measure. On the inhale, the edges of things soften. On the exhale, a fine stardust drifts inward, arranging itself into a subtle halo that settles behind your eyes. Warmth concentrates at the center of your chest, not hot, not bright, just sure. In that surety, the curtain thins. You find yourself inside a stillness window, and the window is looking back as you. The first contour is simple, a path laid across a dark plain, each step lighting just as your foot descends. You realize the light does not come from the ground. It rises from your stride, as if the earth had been waiting for your agreement to reveal its filament. Above, an eclipse rests at totality, but instead of shadow, it pours a ring of gentle radiance, enough to make every outline honest. The world is not louder, it is nearer. You feel a slight lift at the crown, a sign that your attention is sitting in its rightful seat. Then the scene refines. Threads of light codes appear, not as letters, not as symbols, but as living orientations. They drift like aurora, then braid into a geometry your heart already knows how to read. When your gaze relaxes into that braid, the path ahead resolves into more than direction. It becomes a promise of pace. No hurry, no lag, only rightness each moment, meeting you at precisely the temperature you can carry without strain. Your body recognizes this rightness and lengthens your breath to meet it. A figure approaches, not other, not separate, an outline that seems borrowed from your future posture. It walks the same path you are walking, but from slightly ahead. Not a guide to obey, more a witness to mirror. As it draws close, you notice it carries no face, only a clear, compassionate attention, the kind you have been practicing. When it raises its hand, you feel a pulse through your sternum, like a planet acknowledging orbit. Your chest warms in answer. The figure spreads its palm, and the air blooms with a map that is not a map, a lattice of roots that unfurl according to how you listen. You watch as one root brightens, a fine line, not dramatic, not grand, practical radiance. Your body leans toward it without moving. You understand. This is the destiny vector, less a location than a rate of coherence you can sustain. It does not demand spectacle. It requires fidelity. Your attention offers a small bow, and the lattice replies with a tenderness that feels like relief after long correctness without recognition. A murmur passes through the scene, subtle, like reeds acknowledging wind. You realize you are inside morphic resonance, where forms that belong together remember each other at a distance. Ideas you thought you had lost turn their heads. Skills you assumed were ordinary breathe more deeply and reveal their lineage. Faces you haven't met yet glance through from the edges of the vision, not as interruptions, but as confirmations that this vector threads through real lives, tangible hours, shared tables. The future is not far. It is wide. It accepts company. The eclipse halo tilts, and with its tilt, the light codes reweave. You glimpse bifurcations, gentle forks, not punishments, each one a question that requires no words. Will you keep your breath slow when heat rises in the room? Will you tell the truth at the speed love can metabolize? Will you choose the clean burn of coherence over the bright flare of approval? The questions pass through your chest like bells. You do not answer with vows. You answer with the warmth that refuses to dim. As the figure steps aside, the path does not narrow, it clarifies. Entanglement loosens into choreography. You notice how the ordinary is rehearsing a finer timing. Emails landing when your shoulders are low, doors opening when your jaw is soft, meetings resolving when you keep the lamp of your gaze steady and kind. None of it feels like magic. All of it feels like competence infused with mercy. This is the signature of the vision. It makes goodness workable. The scene leans closer once more, and a seal appears, no crest, no text, only a settlement of meaning. The way a lake becomes mirror when wind falls still. It rests over your chest like the lightest hand. With it, your pulse steadies into a rhythm that can carry more voltage without cost. You realize the seal is not something given. It is the name for a condition you have entered by consent. You are not marked from the outside. You are recognized from the inside, and the recognition stabilizes your outline. Let the vision stay simple. Let it be no more than a rightness that returns with every unforced breath. When the image fades, do not chase it. Notice how the warmth in your chest remains. Notice how the light behind your eyes keeps a small ring, like the memory of an eclipse. Notice how the room, unchanged, has become obedient to clarity. You did not conjure this. You permitted it. Permission is the shape of power here. The echo finishes speaking. The source begins. Begin with what you can feel. The warmth in the center of your chest is not sentiment, it is signal. Your slow breath is not indulgence, it is calibration. The ring of light behind your eyes is not decoration, it is the instrument panel of awareness coming online. When these three align, breath, chest, gaze, you notice the world stops scattering and begins to arrange itself into a readable pattern. That arrangement has a name you already trust: coherence. Coherence is not the loud agreement of parts bullied into uniformity. It is the quiet consent of distinct elements to keep time with a deeper rhythm. In physics, a wave becomes powerful when its phases line up. In you, intention becomes effective when your sensing, thinking, and acting keep the same pulse. You feel this as less friction and more glide, as if decisions had fewer burrs. The path does not shorten, drag disappears. Coherence does not make life smaller, it makes momentum honest. Consider the quantum field not as a distant theory, but as the subtle background in which every possibility idles like instruments waiting for the conductor. Your attention is that conductor's baton. When you hold your baton with a clenched fist, the orchestra tenses. When you hold it with a living hand, the musicians breathe. What answers you from the field reflects the quality of your holding. This is why your calm matters. Calm is not absence of movement. It is the precision of movement. Calm is the atmosphere in which meaning chooses to take form. The observer loop is the feedback between what you notice and what becomes available to be noticed next. When you observe with grasping, the loop tightens and produces distortion. You keep finding more of the same scarcity because you are measuring for its continuation. When you observe with reverence, the kind that lets reality arrive without being manhandled, the loop widens and introduces surprise. Options that were out of frame saunter into view as if they were always there, and they were, waiting for a gaze that could host them without panic. Your loop is a gate, your breath is the hinge. Entanglement explains why your inner state is not private. Particles that have learned each other do not forget their lesson when they separate. Change one and the other answers. Your choices entangle with people, places, and futures you cannot yet name. This is not pressure, it is privilege. The steadiness you cultivate in the stillness window travels further than your voice. When your chest warms, somewhere a door softens for a stranger you will meet next winter. When your gaze carries a ring of light, a colleague finds the phrase that finally heals a room. You do not need to manage this. You only need to be accurate in the small radius you can touch. What then causes the sudden feeling that the air around your life has shifted category, as if water deciding to be steam? That sensation is a phase transition, the moment when quantity becomes quality, when enough micro-alignments cross an invisible threshold and the system chooses a new behavior. You have added one careful breath, one honest boundary, one unforced kindness after another. The pile looked unimpressive until, without fanfare, the pile became a bridge. This is how destiny rewrites itself, not by drama, but by accumulation reaching inevitability. Your body knows the math. Incoherent rhythms waste voltage. Coherent rhythms conserve it. That conservation is why you can carry more light without a headache, more responsibility without fatigue, more clarity without becoming sharp. Every cell hosts a tiny conversation about timing. Your breath hosts the choir. When you relax into a steady cadence, the choir agrees on a key and the score becomes playable. People call this luck. Witnesses call it grace. You can call it what you like. It remains coherence working in plain sight. Do not confuse coherence with agreement at all costs. Coherence is allergic to pretense. If a context cannot tune with you without bending your integrity, coherence will escort you to the exit and lock it kindly behind you. This is not exile. It is the field refusing to subsidize what cannot sustain your song. Trust the closed doors that follow, a deep yes. Trust the opened windows you did not plan and cannot justify. Coherence is a ruthless friend, and it will keep you from the rooms that fracture your timing. As you accept this friend, your perception updates. You no longer read tension as failure. You read it as information about where a line is out of phase. You no longer read silence as absence. You read it as the room clearing its throat before the next sentence of reality. You stop treating the world as an opponent to be outmaneuvered and begin treating it as a collaborator whose subtle cues you are finally patient enough to decode. Collaboration is the natural politics of a coherent life. Now the image returns. Eclipse halo above, path brightening underfoot. You sense how your inner rhythm entrains the corridor's lamps, how a steadier pulse makes farther lights agree to wake. You feel why you were asked to soften your jaw, warm your chest, slow your breath. These are not spiritual niceties, they are engineering. The orchestra is real. The baton is in your hand. The field is listening for a tempo only you can keep without strain. Where the mind loosens, the signal threads through effortlessly. You begin to notice how the world answers you with faces, how every room holds a quiet glass that remembers your outline. Not a mirror of vanity, but of function, the collective surface where your interior cadence is reflected as circumstance. You step in with a slow breath, and conversations lengthen into kindness. You arrive braced, and events harden into angles. The field is not punishing, it is precise. Communities are instruments, and coherence tunes them by degrees too, fine for argument yet unmistakable to the body. In that noticing, your chest warms as if a small hearth has recognized returning footsteps. A street corner, a meeting, a message that lands at the exact minute you could bear it. Each shows you the geometry you are keeping. When you carry a ring of light behind your eyes, strangers relax sooner. Their sentences travel a shorter path to honesty. The collective is not separate from you. It is an extension of attention braided from many gazes. Your gaze does not dominate the braid. It invites rightness into it. Where you hold reverence, mutuality becomes easy. Where you grip, entanglement becomes friction. The mirror reports without malice. This is morphic resonance at human scale, the way forms teach one another how to remember themselves. When you choose an unhurried breath in a hurried place, you become the example the room did not know it was allowed to follow. The pattern spreads not by decree, but by relief. A cashier lifts their shoulders and then lets them drop. A friend texts the truer thing. The taxi radio quiets. An elder takes your hand longer than custom insists. No one credits you. No one needs to. The field of remembrance credits fidelity with a wider circle of ease. You are not responsible for holding the world together. You are responsible for not collaborating with what fractures it inside you. That responsibility is smaller and more demanding than saving anyone. It asks that you keep your lamp trimmed even when the weather performs its theater, that you warm your chest when contrariness wants applause, that you stay curious at the speed dignity can metabolize. The collective mirror thickens where curiosity becomes culture, where listening is practiced enough to have weight. You contribute to that thickness with the most ordinary gestures, quiet tone, accurate boundaries, laughter that doesn't cost anyone their face. Sometimes the mirror returns distortion. A room hums with an old frequency you no longer host. You feel the ache of misalignment, not as drama, but as information. Something here is asking for a different rhythm than the one that keeps you whole. This is where coherence does its holy subtraction. You step back, not from love, but from the tempo that would spend your signal. You decline the invitation to be shiny when steadiness is wiser. Doors you might have forced in previous seasons stay closed, and the refusal feels merciful rather than cruel. That, too, is a gift to the collective, modeling exits that do not disgrace anyone. There are nights when the mirror offers grief. You see a timeline where a friend cannot yet choose their own clarity. You witness a system clinging to the familiarity of its ache. You let the sorrow pass through without recruiting it as identity. You remember that entanglement means your steadiness touches edges invisible to you. You trust that the warmth in your chest travels as an unmarked courier, offering options kinder than opinion. You are learning to give without confiscating the pace of another's awakening. As your outline stabilizes, you notice a different kind of convergence. People who carry compatible tempos find you without elaborate searches. Projects land with edges that fit your hands. The crowd does not grow louder, it becomes truer. This is not exclusivity, it is hygiene. Higher timeline is not a pedestal, it is a bandwidth where cooperation is cheap because pretense is expensive. You invest accordingly, fewer performances, cleaner yes, gentler no. The mirror brightens with this economy. What reflects back is not praise, it is usefulness. Rooms you enter start inheriting outcomes aligned with care. The eclipse halo returns at the periphery of your awareness, a reminder that the sun can be veiled without ceasing to be a Sunday. Your light is not threatened by others shining. Your light is threatened only by your own abandonment of the simple practices that keep it breathable. So you keep them, a slow inhale to gather, a slower exhale to share. A hand on the sternum to remind your system that safety is not a vote but a posture. These are not personal tricks. They are social technologies, the smallest gears in a civilization that remembers itself through bodies. You are permitted to be ordinary. In fact, the mirror requires it. Grandiosity fogs glass. Precision wipes it clean. When you speak, you let words select themselves at a humane speed. When you listen, you let silence do the heavy lifting that arguments cannot. You begin to suspect that prophecy in community looks less like pronouncements and more like the room's capacity to tell the truth without losing tenderness. You are content to be one citizen of that tenderness. Your influence deepens as your performance thins. Watch how the mirror multiplies what you stabilize. A single honest boundary rescues 10 future hours for 10 future people. One refusal to gossip saves a reputation you will never need to repair. The coffee you drink slower than habit steadies a meeting that was about to fracture. The child who saw your patience learns a future law. This is not poetry, it is policy written in breath. The collective reads it and updates its code without a vote. A smaller voice becomes undeniable, and you recognize it as your own. There is a minute you can feel it gathering when time stands at an unmarked crossroad and pretends to be a hallway. Your breath, slower than the world wants, makes the hallway admit its fork. The air cools at the surface of your skin while a steady warmth builds in your chest, and the light behind your eyes takes on a soft ring, as if an eclipse halo has rimmed your gaze for accuracy. You are not deciding between good and bad, you are discerning between true and almost true. This is the quiet architecture of timeline bifurcation. Two futures, close enough to share a shadow, different enough to change your name. The first branch offers speed. It is bright with flattery and familiar with your hungers. It speaks your language and demands your breath. Its rewards are immediate and thin, like sugar that charms the tongue and empties the body. If you stand very still, you can hear it bargaining. The bargain is always the same. Trade coherence for applause, trade tenderness for spectacle, trade your lamp for a flare. Your chest tightens by a degree. The ring of light behind your eyes flickers. You recognize this weather. The second branch is not loud. It is patient enough to be mistaken for quiet. It does not court you. It waits to be recognized. When you place your hand over your sternum and let the breath thicken with honesty, something in the room leans. The floor meets your feet more completely. The pressure behind your eyes becomes kind. A phrase floats up from the still part of your attention, nothing grand, only exact. This accuracy is a compass pointing along your destiny vector, the rate of rightness your nervous system can carry without disguise. It asks nothing theatrical. It asks for fidelity. This turning is not an argument with the world. It is a conversation with the portion of you that remembers how to keep time with the higher timeline. That portion never raises its voice. It widens space. It invites a cadence that makes integrity breathable, even when complexity is staging its parade. You feel the invitation as micro-adjustments. Your jaw unhooks, your shoulders drop. The warmth in your chest steadies into a small, sustainable flame. You are not being heroic. You are being exact. Sometimes the fork hides inside a sentence you are about to speak. Sometimes it hides inside a handshake, an email, a price you are tempted to pay with your self-respect. The stillness window opens for a few breaths. You notice it because the edges of things glow with a faint kindness, and in that window, you choose. To onlookers it appears nothing happened, but the field hears a hinge turn. The observer loop expands. What could have become a closed circuit of repetition becomes a corridor with fresh air. This is how a phase transition feels in a human life. There is no trumpet, only a clean click, as accumulated accuracy crosses threshold and the system elects new behavior. One more gentle no to the bright bargain of almost true. One more unembarrassed yes to the pace that leaves your dignity intact. One more breath kept slow when the room accelerates. Each act is small. Together they condense into inevitability. Suddenly the same hours carry more meaning without more weight. You did not get stronger. You became less divided. At the fork, fear masquerades as urgency. It whispers that if you do not leap now, the door will lock and your future will vanish. You answer by noticing what your body already knows. Fear's urgency is a counterfeit tempo. Real doors do not punish coherence. Real paths do not require you to abandon the steady flame in your chest to keep their lights on. The rightness you can sustain is never in a hurry to be proven. It only wants to be lived. You will be tempted to take the first branch for noble reasons. To spare a feeling, to keep a peace that was never peace, to protect an image of yourself that has expired. The temptation is not a failure. It is a rehearsal for remembering. Put your hand on your chest. Find the ring of light behind your eyes. Ask the smallest true question. How would this choice sound if I whispered it into my sleep? The body will answer with sensation before the mind forms a sentence. Believe the sensation. It is your oldest teacher. The fork is not a one-time event. It recurs at finer resolutions as your coherence grows. Early, it looks like dramatic departures. Later, it looks like slight adjustments to tone, punctuation, posture, your head tilting half a degree toward listening when pride wants the last word. Do not despise the smallness of these turns. The world is built on such angles. Civilizations inherit their weather from the posture of single breaths. When you choose the second branch, you may feel a brief grief for the brightness you declined. Let it pass through. It is only the shedding of a costume that once kept you warm. As it slips away, you notice a different brightness gathering, not glare, but depth. Rooms that used to drain you become workable. Conversations that once collapsed into performance become architecture. Coincidence returns as a modest servant. The field stops asking you to prove yourself and starts asking you to be yourself with precision. There are seasons when the fork is invisible to everyone but you. Trust your instruments. Trust the way the room's sound changes when you tell the exact truth. Trust the way your breath returns without being called when you refuse the thin bargain. Trust the way your sleep becomes constructive again when you keep pace with your destiny vector. No audience is needed. Recognition is built into the physics. And when the choice holds, something like a seal settles over the center of your chest, not bestowed from above, but arising from within, a quiet confirmation that your outline can carry more light without smoke. You do not chase the prophetic seal, you become the conditions under which it naturally appears. The corridor brightens by itself, lamp by lamp, at the tempo of your consent. The fork remains behind you, not as regret, but as testimony. You could have hurried, and you did not. You could have dazzled, and you chose to see. The horizon exhales. Nearness replaces distance. Now you begin the ordinary work of carrying the extraordinary without spilling it. Integration is not a ceremony, it is a cadence. You let the frequency that found you take up residence in your smallest hours, the minutes between messages, the posture you keep at the sink, the way your feet meet the floor in the morning before the world remembers your name. You are not proving anything, you are teaching matter to trust you. The warmth in your chest is your curriculum, the light behind your eyes is your chalk. Start simple. Let your breath decide the room's tempo before the room decides yours. 3 slow inhales to harvest attention from the noise. 3 slower exhales to lace that attention through the body. Feel the ribs widen like a patient doorway. Feel the shoulders drop as if a kindly hand had pressed them into honesty. This is not technique for its own sake. It is how you give coherence somewhere to live. Coherence will not squat in a hostile house. It wants tenancy with consent. Your consent is measured in breath. Bring the frequency to your language. Let words emerge at the speed clarity can metabolize. Practice the discipline of the humane sentence. No embroidery to buy love. No sharpness to collect respect. No apology for being exact. You will notice how the observer loop behaves when you keep this pace. Conversations that used to snag now travel a cleaner arc. Misunderstandings surface earlier, gentler. A room that might have needed rescue doesn't. You are not fixing people. You are refusing to collaborate with the chaos that makes fixing feel necessary. Attend to the body as a shrine rather than a vehicle. Food becomes instruction instead of argument. Rest is no longer a negotiation with guilt, but a contract with longevity. Movement is a way to let light codes settle into muscle memory. Offer a palm to your sternum whenever you cross thresholds, doorways, calls, streets, as a way to remind the system that you are keeping the house lit from the inside. This touch is a local broadcast to the entire network of you, a message that says, the field of remembrance is here, you do not need to seek it in panic. It is a climate you keep by kindness. Integration will ask you to inventory your agreements. Which commitments once kept you faithful but now keep you fragmented? Which rituals still fit the shape of your devotion, and which simulate devotion while spending your signal? You do not need drama to answer. All you need is the sensation of rightness that has become familiar since the vision. When the body tightens and the breath turns stingy, you are negotiating with a contract that no longer belongs to your higher timeline. When the body warms and your eyes hold their ring, you are standing inside fidelity. Trust this simple meter more than the clever arguments of fear. People will feel the difference. Morphic resonance will do what it does. Patterns that match the new rhythm will appear closer. Patterns that cannot comply will politely drift. You are not exiling anyone. You are refusing to subsidize the tempos that fracture you. As the orbit of your days clarifies, the calendar stops being a crowded hallway and becomes a curated garden. Work becomes the place where usefulness and beauty shake hands. Rest stops hiding behind exhaustion and walks out in daylight, unashamed and necessary. Expect small temptations to perform brightness instead of embodying it. The platform that rewards speed over precision will beckon. The bargain that offers reach at the price of sleep will wink. You do not need to fight these invitations. You can let them pass like weather crossing a clean window. The window does not hate the storm. It honors its own transparency by not pretending to be a door. Your transparency is your power. Integration means you keep it clean. Let tenderness be technical. When tension collects in the jaw, unhook it and watch how the mind's urgency loses its attorney. When your gaze narrows, widen it to include the edges of the room. Panic cannot keep its costume when the periphery is admitted. When a conversation heats faster than dignity can cook it, say fewer words and add more breath. These are micro-engineerings of presence, small acts that prevent large repairs. They matter because entanglement is real. Your steadiness is contagious, and so is your fracture. Choose your contagion. You will feel a seasoned change in your sleep. Dreams stop rehearsing old debates and begin offering designs, rooms with better doorways, schedules with honest margins, faces you have not met walking toward you with the gentle gravity of inevitability. Keep a pen by the bed, not to trap the dream, but to signal your availability to collaborate. The psyche responds to such courtesies. So does the future. On difficult days, integration looks like surviving without abandoning yourself. You will not always glow. Some hours you will only refuse to lie. That refusal is part of the weave. It preserves the destiny vector when the wind turns contrary. The vector does not require your mood, it requires your maintenance. Maintenance is prayer disguised as habit water, movement, sleep, bread, laughter, honest work, unforced quiet. Civilization is built from such prayers, and when ease returns as it will, like a tide keeping its word, notice how your capacity has grown. What used to overwhelm now fits inside your chest without crowding the lamp. What used to demand explanation now recognizes your silence as adequate company. You are not harder, you are simpler. The signal routes through you with fewer detours. Power stops meaning pressure and starts meaning permission. You are permitted to be exact. You are permitted to be kind while being exact. Keep going, not fast. True, keep the ring of light. Keep the hearth of warmth. Keep the breath like a metronome that loves you. The tone you are tuning will outlast the hour. It will outlast the season. It will treat the future like an equal and be treated so in return. What you were chasing sits beside you, unhurried. You do not earn this quiet. You allow it. The hours thin to their essentials, and you slip into a room inside yourself where furniture is memory and the only window looks inward. Breath becomes architecture. Inhale like you are lifting a lantern. Exhale like you are placing it gently on the floor of your chest. The glow is not for show, it is for seeing. In that glow, details volunteer their names. A thought that once demanded explanation settles into a single true sentence. A feeling that had bark becomes a soft animal and lies down. You are inside the silence that does not accuse, only organizes. Let the stillness window widen without trying to hold it in place. Stillness that is gripped becomes absence. Stillness that is welcomed becomes presence. Your ribs learn a new flexibility. The sternum warms as if a small sun had found its rightful orbit. The light behind your eyes rings like the fine edge of an eclipse. These are not decorations. They are instruments coming into tune, so the music of your life can play without static. You are listening to your own system introduce itself back to you. Here, coherence is less idea than climate. The mind stops dragging yesterday's weather into today. The body stops bracing against an unlived tomorrow. The hour is what it is, adequate, breathable, complete. Within that completeness, a quiet audit occurs. Your nervous system feels for the places where the observer loop still kinks, where looking becomes grasping, where care turns to control. Each kink shows itself as a small noise in the field, a shoulder tightening, a jaw collecting arguments, a breath that shortens for no good reason. You do not scold the noise. You offer it a longer exhale, and the loop widens back into conversation. There is work happening that language cannot supervise. Old threads of entanglement loosen without drama. Loyalties that exhausted you unhook with a kindness that surprises you. Ambitions that were actually disguises set themselves down and ask to be thanked before they go. You thank them. You let them leave. You watch how the floor under your feet becomes quieter with each departure, as if the house of your life has been relieved of a weight it never asked to carry. You will notice the field of remembrance making small deliveries while you rest. A face from a dream returns in daylight to hand you a sentence you needed. An image you drew years ago reveals the instruction it was hiding for this season. A tune you hummed as a child aligns itself with a present decision and grants you the courage to choose without flair. Nothing here is theatrical. The sacred has learned to whisper because you have learned to hear. Do not mistake quiet for pause in your destiny vector. The vector continues under the floorboards, rerouting power through channels you once clogged with effort. The silence is not empty. It is saturated with reconfiguration. This is how a phase transition behaves when it is merciful. It lets you be still while the deep math resolves. You are not idle. You are being carried by the arithmetic that your fidelity has earned. If grief arrives, let it. Grief is the sound something makes when it returns your energy after keeping it too long. Place a hand on the sternum. Keep the ring of light in your gaze. Allow tears to irrigate a ground more honest than words. Watch how the water knows where to go without a map. This is coherence enacted by salt and warmth. This is the body proving it remembers how to finish a story without an audience. At the edge of this room, you may sense the light codes moving like slow weather, almost imperceptible, until you notice how your posture updates by a few degrees of kindness. Do not try to read them. Let them read you. Codes are not commands. They are invitations written in the grammar of subtle electricity. Your consent is the only password. Consent is measured in breath and unforced. Yes, you are learning how to be legible to your own future. You are also learning the economics of speech. Words grow expensive in this phase. Silence becomes legal tender. When you do speak, your voice sounds like it has been washed. Edges that once performed certainty dissolve into gentleness that doesn't need to beg. People hear the difference. The room acquires a steadiness disproportionate to the number of syllables used. This is not charisma. This is alignment. Alignment does not seduce. It invites rest. You may be tempted to narrate the quiet to prove you are working. Resist the urge. Let the hour protect its own sanctity. The higher timeline is allergic to performative noise. It travels on the rails of honest intervals. Keep your intervals clean. Keep the tasks simple. Water the plant. Answer the message that deserves your whole presence. Step outside and let the sky recalibrate your scale. You are not becoming smaller. You are becoming exact. If the world knocks loudly, do not flinch. Also, do not rush. Open the door the way you have been opening your breath. Let the visitor meet the climate you have kept. Many storms lose their posture when the house refuses to lean. This is not defiance. It is hospitality to truth. The silence phase is teaching you how to host your life without arguing with weather. In this room, you remember that fate is not a script but a rhythm. You do not need to memorize lines. You need to keep time. When doubt appears, offer it a chair. Doubt becomes less theatrical when seated. Ask it what it is protecting. Thank it for its service. Return your attention to the warmth in your chest and the ring of light in your gaze. The conversation continues with or without words, and you are fluent now in both dialects. Under the lids of stillness, symbols align into language. Begin exactly where you are. Let the breath arrive like tide and leave like tide, unhurried, clean. Place your palm at the center of your chest until the skin warms beneath it, as if a lamp were acknowledging your hand. Allow the small halo of light to return behind your eyes, no strain, only admission. Feel how the room quiets when you keep this posture. Nothing dramatic is required. Activation is the moment accuracy becomes movement without abandoning gentleness. On the inhale, you gather yourself from the corners where worry had scattered you. On the exhale, you pour that gathered self along the length of your spine as if laying a rail for your steps to follow. The air tastes clearer. The edges of objects soften into invitation. You are not conjuring force. You are granting passage. Inside this passage, coherence ceases to be an abstract idea and becomes a working current, steady, breathable, obedient to love. Now name the hour, quietly, as if speaking to a child who trusts you. It is time. You say not to rush, not to prove, but to harmonize. See how the body responds. The jaw unhooks, the shoulders return to their rightful height. The breath keeps time as though listening to a choir it finally recognizes. At this pitch, decisions appear at their honest scale. You don't need to dramatize what is simple or minimize what is holy. You only need to place each yes and no where it belongs and let reality read your handwriting. Invite the light codes to settle deeper, not by grasping for meanings but by consenting to integration. Ask that they thread into muscle and memory, into tone and timing, into the way your gaze rests on the world. You will feel it as tiny updates. A sentence chooses softer words without losing accuracy. A plan widens its margin for humanity. A habit that once hid anxiety decides to retire with dignity. Thank each update. Gratitude is conductivity. Bring your attention to the perimeter of your life calendar, thresholds, tools. Activation loves the ordinary. Align 3 small things with care, and watch how the 4th aligns itself without instruction. The morning window you open before speaking to anyone, the clear desk that lets your intention land, or the cup of water you finish before your first reply. You are composing a rhythm that your future can recognize at a distance. The field of remembrance memorizes this rhythm and returns it to you as coincidence that saves you hours. When an impulse to hurry arrives, listen for the costume it wears. Is it urgency or fear? If fear, thank it for trying to protect pace by impersonating it. Then restore the actual tempo with a longer exhale. If urgency is true, an honest call from usefulness, you will notice that your breath can carry it without burning. True urgency is compatible with tenderness. Counterfeit urgency shakes the hand too hard and calls it strength. Your body knows the difference. Keep believing your body. Name what you are willing to release today to keep your outline intact. Perhaps an overpromised hour. Perhaps an identity that collected applause but taxed your sleep. Perhaps a sentence you've been repeating out of habit that no longer matches your music. Release it carefully, as you would remove a splinter without scolding the wound for having one. Each release clarifies your destiny vector, not a destination, but a rate of rightness that carries you without waste. Now, speak to your attention the way the moon speaks to tide. Come home, let it return from futures that do not need you yet, and pasts that cannot be repaired by revisiting. Let it sit in the chair of your gaze. From that chair, look at one thing you love enough to tell the truth to a person, a craft, a room, a tree, and practice the sacrament of seeing without taking. Watch how the world responds when it is beheld without appetite. This is the ethics of activation. Nothing is coerced into meaning. Everything is invited to reveal its inherent one. If resistance surfaces, greet it like weather you expected. You may sit near the door. You tell it, but you may not drive. Offer resistance a glass of water. Offer it a slower sentence. Often it was only thirsty. Often it only needed the shelter of your steadiness to relax its grip on the emergency lever. You are learning to lead your interior with the same respect you hope to offer your day. Now give your hour a seal by action, not performance. One email written from kindness instead of strategy. One boundary placed without apology. One call made with your voice washed clean of theater. One step taken when postponement would have disguised fear as prudence. Small things, exact things. The lamp behind your eyes brightens by a degree you can sustain. The room hears the click that the world calls luck and the field calls alignment. If your heart asks for a vow, give it the gentlest kind, a repeatable vow. I will keep the breath slow enough for truth, you say. I will protect the warmth in my chest as if it were a village fire. I will let my gaze remain kind even when precision is required. These vows are scaffolding, not cages. They make space for the future to do its part. And now the sentence you were asked to carry to this place, your simple rite of entry into the life waiting in the next room. Whisper into the quiet, I remember. Then type, I remember the prophecy. Do it without spectacle, with the dignity of someone returning a key to its lock. Feel how the click echoes down corridors you cannot yet see but will soon be walking. Stand a moment longer in the soft ring of your gaze. Feel the floor commit to your feet. Feel the breath keep its vow. Activation is not a storm. It is consent in motion. You have consented. You are moving. The current inside your spine changes direction, and you follow. The moment arrives without spectacle. It feels like a room that has finished arranging itself. Chair angled just so, lamp trimmed, window open enough for the honest breeze. Your breath keeps even time. Warmth holds the center of your chest, like a small hearth that has learned the discipline of steady flame. The ring of light behind your eyes does not insist. It abides. In this abiding, the field of remembrance recognizes its own outline in you, and what we call the prophetic seal settles, not bestowed, not earned, simply acknowledged. The seal is not a badge, it is a condition. It confirms that coherence has become your climate rather than your event, that you can carry voltage without smoke, precision without injury, tenderness without surrendering truth. You feel it as permission where strain used to be, as clarity where performance used to stand, as the ease of being read correctly by the hour that meets you. The world does not kneel, it organizes. The lamp of your gaze blesses what it sees by seeing it without appetite, and reality answers with shapes that can survive love. You notice how the small mechanics hold. The body refuses counterfeit urgency. The mind retires its old habit of rehearsing danger as devotion. The breath remembers its vow and keeps the pace that dignity can metabolize. This is not immunity from weather. It is intimacy with navigation. Even when wind rises, your destiny vector remains measurable, less a route than a rate at which rightness stays breathable. You do not hurry the future, you keep time with it. Connections refine themselves. Entanglement stops feeling like obligation and starts feeling like citizenship. Your yes travels clean corridors to those who are built to receive it. Your no lands as kindness where boundary is medicine. Rooms stop asking you to split yourself to belong. You bring one face, and the room either tunes or releases. Both outcomes are compassion. Both protect the song. The seal also alters your grammar of action. You no longer push doors that do not know your name. You wait until the handle warms, and then you enter with the posture that wastes no one's breath. Work becomes consecrated not by title but by the quality of attention braided through it. Rest is not the prize at the end, it is the fabric in which all movement is stitched. You have become fluent in intervals. Silence is not blank, it is score. Let the eclipse halo linger at the periphery of your awareness, a quiet crown reminding you that light can veil itself and remain sovereign. Let the stardust keep its slow descent through the rooms of your life until every surface brightens by association. Do not seek remarkable hours, make ordinary hours accurate, and watch how wonder becomes practical. Keep the chest warm, keep the gaze kind, keep the breath as metronome and mercy. This is how a higher timeline stays local. If you must make a vow, let it be light enough to travel, to remember what you are in moments that forget you, to bless the next step with the same care you wanted from the horizon, to let coherence choose your words before you do. Then walk not away from anything, but as the continuation of everything that has found its timing in you. The future you remember has begun remembering you back.